My name is Alvin Lee. I'm actually current senior here at MSJ, and I use he, him, his pronouns. Today, I'm really going to talk about a really, underrepresented issue when it comes to this discussion on advocacy and political engagement, which is education advocacy. There's a lot of different types of advocacy and engagements that students like to involve themselves in: climate, racial justice, other things. But what people really fail to realize sometimes is how interconnected all of these issues are at a fundamental level to education, right? You take things like economic inequity, racial inequity, ethnic studies, right? More affordable access to both K through 12 education and post-secondary education. All of these things are very much systemic solutions to systemic problems. And I think that a lot of times education is really kind of undershadowed as an issue when it comes to voting, when it comes to media discourse and mainstream discussion. So today I'm really going to kind of talk about the importance of youth leadership and youth engagement when it comes to education advocacy. So I'm going to kind of get into it, and I'm hoping that the main takeaway after my talk is a lot of you feel really empowered to go make a change in your district and in your education system. So to kind of kick it off, I'm going to give a really quick rundown of what school boards do. So this is a short graphic. For folks that maybe aren't familiar, a school board is a group of elected or appointed people who oversee a school district that really supports public education in the community. Generally, it's 5 folks. So in FUSD, we have 5 board trustees. In FUSD, they're all elected. Most school board members are generally elected, and less than 5% are actually appointed. Our school board members are actually unpaid volunteers, so most of them have full-time jobs. A lot of them do not have prior political experience as well, so a lot of these are teachers, school administrators, sometimes even parent and just different community stakeholders. So what does a school board do? Well, at a fundamental level, they work with their communities to improve student achievement. So they're responsible for hiring, they're the boss of the superintendent, they oversee the district, they create the annual budget, they set district policies, they set district curriculum. Particularly in California, where our education system is so big on local control, a lot of that authority really rests within local school districts. So when you really talk about systemic change in California's education system, you're talking about 2 things. Either one, you're passing legislation and legislating at a state level, or you're passing local district policy and legislating at a district level. So this is just some fast facts. School boards direct more than 600 billion annually to more than 50 to teach more than 50 million students. Voter turnout for school board elections is notoriously low, 2% in some districts. And to put that in reference, school boards are probably one of the most impactful things that voters can vote for. And most of the time, voters do not make it to the bottom half of the ballot where the trustees are. So just to put that in perspective for you about the importance of engagement with our school boards. So these are some of the responsibilities of a school board, right? They create a vision plan, they build effective community partnerships, they demonstrate transparency and accountability, they legislate policy, and they create community consensus, right? When you're talking about setting a vision, they have to create high expectations for quality teaching, effective school leadership, things like engaged learning. When you talk about policy, they do things like practical guidelines, setting curriculum, things like that. When it comes to accountability, you're talking about things like academic standards, transparency, school board members being transparent about the different things they're working on at a district level with the rest of the community and the constituents that elected them into office. When it comes to forging consensus, it's natural that a school board has to work with a diversity of folks in the community when it comes from unions and PTAs and student stakeholders. A lot of folks have very strong perspectives and passionate beliefs, so school board members really have to be able to forge consensus. And most importantly, they have to lead the community, right? An effective board really understands that it's really essential and critical to build strong relationships with parents, teachers, students, and community members. And the idea is that through this kind of political discourse and dialogue, school board members can hear and really respond to community concerns and explain the district's priorities to the public. So a second thing that's really important to note, which is great high schools equals a victory for all citizens, both economically and in a whole host of other things. So I'm going to give you some fast statistics. 87% of high school students want to go to a college, but fewer than half graduate fully prepared for college coursework. 551 billion. Closing the racial achievement gap in schools across America would boost the American GDP by more than $500 billion a year. 1 billion. So as a result, students and their families spend more than 1 billion every year for remedial courses in college. To even put that into larger perspective for you, economists expect that nearly half of American jobs will be impacted by automation, and only 1 in 20 American adults that have gone through our education system think high school graduates are very prepared for college and the modern workplace. And so when it comes to this discussion, about, school district and kind of creating a brighter and more inclusive education system that works for everyone, a lot of times what's really lacking in the room is the student voice, the student perspective. And a lot of times you'll notice that if you actually become engaged in your community, particularly when it comes to students and education advocacy, the board will be extremely receptive to you. And, I would argue that you could probably get tangible change done a lot better and in a lot more effective manner than other constituents that are also in the room. So a question that I think a lot of folks, particularly students, should think about when they're thinking about, what do I want to advocate in my local school district, is think about this for a second, right? What is the best part of school? What makes it a great place to go? What helps students learn the things that are important to learn? Really setting this positive framing and figuring out kind of what your ideal school environment and school climate is really important in figuring out kind of what you want to advocate for and how do you achieve that ultimate end goal. And that's something that applies to anything in life, whether it's advocacy, whatever you're doing. But when it comes to kind of education advocacy, this is a particular question. So think about these subject areas, right? And just think about this question. Think about whether you want to improve class sizes. Maybe you want more mental health training. You want more school counselors. You want climate literacy in schools. You want ethnic studies in schools for folks better understand the erased history in our Eurocentric textbooks, right? These are all great questions and great things that need to be addressed, and student voice is a critical part in addressing that. So in order to kind of move on to this next piece about pipeline, it comes down to really speaking up and showing up. So again, like I said earlier, students can really, really make an impact in their education system, particularly at a local level. And students are really best equipped to do that. So this is a simple kind of action guideline, right, about how any student can kind of get involved in their district and how they can make a change in their district, right? The first thing is you want to figure out your action plan of what you want to change, right? Does my district agree with me? Find out whether what you're asking for is already in the district and is supported by it, or if not, really start looking at your own lived experiences and your lived experiences of your fellow classmates and really start gathering that idea of where change needs to happen. The second thing is you want to identify your allies, right? So a great example is if you're on the topic of, let's say, bringing mental health to schools, right? Figure out an action plan of what the end goal you want to achieve in schools. Maybe it's you want the schools across FUSD, all 5, to require social emotional learning aspects into their health classes, right? So the second piece is identifying your allies. What are the different community stakeholders that will support you in achieving that end goal? That could be your teacher union. That could be the Mission San Jose PTO, MPPFA. That could be maybe a school board trustee or someone that's a very passionate advocate for mental health. Maybe that's even an administrator from the district that's also really passionate about this issue, right? Identify your allies, get them in a room, and inform them of the change that you're trying to make in your district. Next is supporting your ask with evidence and precedent, right? Find different data, statistics, prior precedent, and research to support what your ask is and making a really compelling claim, right, on why what you want to achieve and what you want to implement in your district is so critical right now for said district to implement. The fourth step, which is the most awesome step that's kind of, the most advocacy driven, right, is speaking out, right? At the end of the day, the school board is your audience, right? The school district is there to serve you as student stakeholders, right? I mean, they're elected into office, they oversee a district budget, they hire teachers, they hire staff, they employ the district offer what, right? To educate us as students, right? And so you have a really powerful voice in the room when it comes to making that systemic change. So, first thing, find a board meeting date. Next thing is maybe learning more about our education system. California has a very complex education system with a lot of different stakeholders. To put that in perspective for you, California, we spend over $60 billion a year on education annually. That is more than the entire budget of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, their entire endowment. So even if Bill Gates threw his entire net worth, he could only fund California's education system for 2 years. So, this is a budget that's bigger than most Fortune 500 companies. So it's a very bureaucratic system. It's a very large system to navigate. And there's a lot of different stakeholders. So ed100.org is a really great way to do that. They're really easy to sign on. Anyone can do it. They have these awesome video and lesson plans that are broken down where any student, adult, or stakeholder can really understand how our education system works. The next thing is building community pressure and movement building, right? Bring together the different stakeholders you have, ASBs, elected student representatives, Fremont, for example, Surfboard E, right? And then speak at board meetings, right? Give open communication, give public comments, and then get your act agendized, right? Board resolutions or actions, and then get it passed. Ask your superintendent, your board president to get it agendized and passed in the board resolution. And then at that point, just sit back and really enjoy the change that you've made in your community. So I guess the real takeaway is that, just take action, feel compelled to take action. Again, like I said earlier, education is really the key to addressing a lot of systemic inequities, right? And this is a quote that I think that sums it up perfectly, right? If your actions inspire others to dream more, learn more, do more, and become more, you are a leader. And I think that the main takeaway that I really want from this presentation is that the obvious one is, staying engaged and becoming an advocate in your education system is important. But I'd say more critically, I think the main takeaway I want to get across is that, any student can become an advocate in their district and in their community, and any student can make a difference in their community. And all it takes is for you to feel that compulsion to say, look, this is something I want to change in my community. I'm ready to do this, for you to kind of take that bold step of getting out of your comfort zone and saying, I'm ready to make a change in your community, and figuring out what that is. And I promise you, once you start advocating for that thing, others are going to join in on you. And more people are going to learn about your work. They're going to want to hop on board, and you're going to slowly start creating a movement. And the most beautiful thing about creating a movement is they always outlive the original person who started it. And that's really key to making not only short-term impact, but long-term impact. And so anyone has the capacity to make a change in their district. All the students here, all of y'all can create amazing change in Fremont Unified. And all it takes is you kind of stepping out of your mold and just really saying, I'm ready to make a difference in this district, stepping out, advocating, speaking out at board meetings. And that's really what it is.